I am Christiana, 32 years old, a single mother who rebuilt her life from scratch after my divorce. My 7-year-old son Tyler is my entire world. Last month, a work emergency forced me to leave him with my parents for a weekend. What I discovered when I returned shattered me to my core. My son curled up on the floor, hungry and neglected. My own parents had refused to feed him, claiming he was just a visitor and not family. The betrayal cut deep, but what I did next changed everything. If you've ever had to protect your child from your own family, let me know where you're watching from. Like and subscribe if you believe that sometimes the most important boundaries are the ones we set with those who raised us. I grew up in Oak Ridge, a small Midwestern town where everyone knew each other and family reputation meant everything. My father Frank worked as a bank manager, and my mother Diane was a high school English teacher. From the outside, we were the picture-perfect American family. But inside our home, the atmosphere was always cold and rigid. My parents ruled with strict discipline and impossibly high expectations. Emotions were considered weakness, and any form of rebellion was met with icy disapproval. I can count on one hand the number of times I received physical affection from them after the age of 5. Their love always felt conditional, tied to my achievements and obedience. Despite my efforts to be the daughter they wanted, I never quite measured up. When I got pregnant at 22 during my senior year of college, their disappointment was palpable. Even though I married Jason, my boyfriend of 3 years, my parents treated my pregnancy like a shameful mistake rather than the blessing it was to me. "You had so much potential," my mother said when I told her the news. "Now look at you throwing it all away for some boy and an unplanned baby." They attended our small wedding but sat stone-faced through the ceremony. In the photos, everyone is smiling except them. They declined to help with the baby shower, and when Tyler was born, they waited 2 weeks before visiting, claiming they were too busy to come sooner. I worked hard to finish my marketing degree while caring for a newborn. Jason and I struggled but made it work for a while. When Tyler was 4, our marriage fell apart. Jason had been having an affair with a coworker for over a year. The divorce was bitter and draining both emotionally and financially. My parents' response was exactly what I expected. "We told you it wouldn't work out. You should have focused on your career instead of rushing into marriage and motherhood." Their words stung, but I had no time to dwell on their criticism. I had a 4-year-old son who needed stability and love. As a newly single mom, I poured everything into building a secure life for Tyler. I landed a job as a marketing specialist at a small firm that allowed some flexibility for childcare emergencies. The pay wasn't great, but it covered our modest apartment and necessities. Tyler grew into a sweet, thoughtful boy with his father's dark, curly hair and my green eyes. He's sensitive and perceptive, often bringing me wildflowers he finds on the playground or drawing pictures to cheer me up when I'm stressed. He has some mild food allergies to certain preservatives and needs regular meals to maintain his energy and mood. Skip a meal and he becomes lethargic and emotional. Jason pays child support but remains minimally involved in Tyler's life. He moved 2 states away with his new wife and sees Tyler perhaps 4 times a year. Phone calls have dwindled to once a month at best. With limited support, I've had to be creative with childcare and work arrangements. My boss has been understanding, allowing me to work from home when Tyler is sick or during school holidays. A neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, an elderly widow who adores Tyler, helps with after-school care most days. I deliberately kept my parents at a distance after the divorce. Their judgment and criticism were the last things I needed while rebuilding our lives. They made occasional efforts to see Tyler, usually around holidays or his birthday, but these visits were brief and awkward. Last year, approaching my 31st birthday, I decided it might be time to rebuild some bridges. Not for my sake, but for Tyler's. Despite everything, they were his only grandparents on my side. Jason's parents lived in Arizona and were even less involved than he was. I started bringing Tyler for monthly Sunday dinners at their house. These visits were strained but civil. My mother would fuss over Tyler's table manners but seemed pleased when he complimented her cooking. My father occasionally took interest in Tyler's schoolwork, especially his math skills. It wasn't warm or particularly loving, but it seemed like progress. Then came the work crisis. Our biggest client threatened to leave after a miscommunication about their marketing campaign. My boss called an emergency weekend meeting in Chicago with the client, and as the account manager, my presence was non-negotiable. It was terrible timing. Mrs. Patterson was visiting her daughter out of state. My few friends with children had plans they couldn't change. Jason was unreachable on a trip with his new wife. After exhausting every option, I reluctantly called my parents. "We're not really set up for children anymore, Christiana," my mother said hesitantly. "It's only for 2 nights, Mom. I'll drop him off Friday after school and pick him up Sunday evening. He's not a baby anymore. He's very self-sufficient for his age." After consulting with my father, she agreed, though not enthusiastically. "I suppose we can manage, but we have our church committee meeting on Saturday afternoon. Tyler can bring books and his tablet. He's good at entertaining himself," I assured her. I spent Thursday evening carefully packing Tyler's bag clothes medications for his allergies, his favorite stuffed tiger, and several books. I also prepared containers of his favorite foods labeled with meal times and wrote out his schedule in detail, including bedtime routines and emergency contacts. On Friday morning, I sat Tyler down for a heart-to-heart. "You're going to stay with Grandma and Grandpa this weekend while Mommy goes to an important work meeting." His little forehead creased with worry, but they don't smile much. My heart clenched. Out of the mouths of babes. "They show love differently, sweetie. They're going to take good care of you, and I'll be back before you know it. I'll call every day, and you can call me anytime you want." He nodded bravely, and I hugged him tightly, breathing in the sweet scent of his hair. "I love you more than anything in the whole wide world, Tyler. I'll be back so soon." As I dropped him off at my parents' house that afternoon, I went over the schedule and food containers with my mother. She waved dismissively. "Christiana, I raised you. I think I can handle one small boy for 2 days." Something in her tone made me uneasy, but I pushed the feeling aside. This was a critical moment for my career, and I had no other options. I kissed Tyler goodbye, promising to call that night, and headed for the airport with a knot of anxiety in my stomach that I couldn't quite explain. The flight to Chicago was turbulent, matching my internal state. As the plane bounced through air pockets, I gripped the armrests and tried to focus on my presentation materials instead of the growing unease about leaving Tyler. My rational mind knew that despite their emotional coldness, my parents wouldn't deliberately harm their grandson. Yet something felt wrong about this arrangement, like a discordant note in an otherwise familiar melody. My hotel room overlooked the Chicago skyline, but I barely noticed the view. After checking in, I immediately called my parents' house. My mother answered on the 5th ring. "We're about to have dinner," she said, her tone clipped. "Can I talk to Tyler? I just wanted to say goodnight." A pause, then Tyler's voice came through quieter than usual. "Hi, Mom." "Hey, sweetheart, how's everything going? Did you have a good afternoon with Grandma and Grandpa?" "It's okay." His voice lacked its usual enthusiasm. "Did you eat something good for dinner?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. "Grandma made chicken." No elaboration, no details. Uncharacteristic for my normally chatty son. "Are you feeling all right, Tyler? You sound tired." My mother's voice interrupted before he could answer. "He's fine, Christiana. Stop fussing. We need to eat while the food is hot." "Okay, well, sleep tight, buddy. I love you. I'll call again tomorrow." "Love you too, Mom." The line went dead before I could say more. I stared at my phone, trying to decode what felt off about the conversation. Maybe he was just adjusting to being without me in an environment that wasn't particularly warm. Or maybe my own anxiety was coloring my perception. The next morning, I met with my colleagues for breakfast to finalize our strategy. Andrea, our creative director, noticed my distraction. "Everything okay? You seem a million miles away." I sighed, stirring my untouched coffee. "My son is staying with my parents this weekend. We don't have the best relationship, and I'm worried about how he's doing." "Parents," Andrea said knowingly. "Mine were cold as ice growing up. Take it from someone who's been there, kids are resilient. And this is just for a couple days, right?" I nodded, but couldn't shake the memory of being 8 years old with a fever calling for my mother, and being told to stop being dramatic and go back to sleep. Or being 12 and getting locked out of the house for coming home 15 minutes late from school, forced to sit on the porch until my father returned from work 3 hours later. My parents had never been physically abusive, but their emotional neglect had left scars that still hadn't fully healed. The client meeting started at 9 and ran through most of the day. I pushed my personal concerns aside and focused completely on saving the account. By mid-afternoon, the tension in the room had dissipated, and the client was receptive to our revised proposal. It was going better than expected. During a brief break, I called home again. This time, my father answered. "We're quite busy, Christiana," he said when I asked to speak with Tyler. "Your mother is at her church meeting and I'm trying to fix the lawnmower." "Where's Tyler?" "Reading in the guest room. He's fine. I checked on him an hour ago." "Can you please get him for just a minute?" An exasperated sigh, then muffled footsteps. Tyler's voice came through, sounding smaller than before. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, sweetheart. How are you doing today?" "Okay." A pause. "When are you coming home?" The question carried weight beyond the words. "Tomorrow evening, just like I promised." "Are you having a good time with Grandma and Grandpa?" "I guess." Then in a whisper, "I miss you." "I miss you too, buddy. So much. Is Grandpa taking good care of you? Are you eating your special meals I packed?" Before Tyler could answer, my father's voice cut in. "He's being taken care of, Christiana. You need to stop coddling him. We'll see you tomorrow evening." The call ended abruptly, leaving me staring at my phone in the hallway outside the conference room. Something definitely wasn't right, but I couldn't put my finger on exactly what. Tyler seemed subdued, but not in distress. My parents were being their usual dismissive selves, but not overtly cruel. The afternoon session went well, and by 6 o'clock we had salvaged the account. The client signed the revised contract, and my boss was ecstatic. Under normal circumstances, we would have celebrated with dinner and drinks, but I begged off, claiming fatigue. Back in my hotel room, I tried calling again. No answer. I sent a text message to my father's phone. "Please have Tyler call me before bedtime." No response. Unable to settle my growing anxiety, I called Mrs. Patterson, my elderly neighbor. "I'm sure everything is fine, dear," she said soothingly. "But if you're really worried, why not come home early? They've signed the contract, haven't they? The rest is just celebration." She was right. I checked flight options, finding a seat on the 8 a.m. flight Sunday morning, which would get me to my parents' house by noon instead of evening. I booked it immediately and tried to get some sleep. Sunday morning, I was up before dawn. As I waited to board my flight, a text message came through from Tyler's phone, which I'd given him for emergencies. "When are you coming home? I'm hungry." My blood ran cold. I called immediately, but the call went straight to voicemail. I tried my parents' landline, and my mother answered, sounding annoyed. "Tyler just texted me that he's hungry." "What's going on?" "He's being dramatic, just like you always were. We're going to have breakfast after church." "Has he eaten anything this morning? What about yesterday's meals?" "Christiana, we have our own schedule in this house. Tyler needs to adapt to how other people live, not expect everyone to cater to his every whim. We'll feed him when we're ready to eat." "Mom, I packed meals specifically for him. He needs regular food because of his blood sugar issues." "Oh, for heaven's sake. Everyone has issues these days. In my day, children ate what was provided when it was provided. Now I need to go or we'll be late for service." The line went dead, and panic surged through me. Something was very wrong. As soon as I landed, I called again with no answer. Rather than wait for a connecting flight that was already showing delays, I rented a car and began the 4-hour drive to my parents' house, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly, my knuckles turned white. During that endless drive, memories flooded back. My mother removing my dinner plate if I was 2 minutes late to the table, claiming I obviously wasn't hungry enough. My father locking the pantry to prevent snacking, leaving me hungry through long afternoons. The time I got sick at school after not eating breakfast, and instead of sympathy, received a lecture about learning to wake up on time. I'd normalized their behavior for so long, telling myself it wasn't that bad, that other kids had it worse. But now, imagining Tyler experiencing even a fraction of what I had filled me with a rage so pure, it frightened me. I pressed down on the accelerator, watching the miles tick by, too slowly sending unanswered text after text. By the time I turned onto my parents' street, it was just past 11 a.m., hours earlier than they expected me. Their car wasn't in the driveway, likely they were still at church. I still had my old house key on my keychain, and with hands shaking from fear and anger, I unlocked the front door. The house was quiet as I stepped inside, calling out Tyler. "It's Mom, I'm home early." No response. My heart raced as I moved quickly through the immaculate living room. Then I saw him curled up on the floor beside the sofa, his small body making a tight ball. My son didn't even look up when I approached a behavior, so unlike his usual exuberant greetings that alarm bells rang in my head. I knelt beside him, gently touching his shoulder. He rolled over slowly, his face pale and drawn. When he registered my presence, his eyes widened in disbelief, then filled with tears. "Mom, you're really here." "Yes, baby, I'm here." I gathered him into my arms, feeling how his small body trembled. "What's wrong? Are you sick?" "I'm so hungry," he whispered against my neck. "My tummy hurts so bad." Ice filled my veins as I pulled back to look at him. His eyes had dark circles beneath them. His lips were dry, and when I touched his forehead, his skin felt clammy. "When did you last eat, sweetheart?" "Friday night. Grandma gave me some chicken and potatoes." But then, he trailed off, looking fearfully toward the kitchen. "Then what, Tyler?" "Then they said I had to earn my food like a big boy. But I didn't know how to earn it." Fresh tears spilled down his cheeks. "I tried being really good and quiet. I tried helping Grandpa with the yard. But they still wouldn't let me have my special meals you packed." Rage rose in me like a tidal wave, but I forced it down, focusing on Tyler's immediate needs. "Let's get you something to eat right now." I carried him to the kitchen, shocked to find an elaborate Sunday breakfast laid out on the counter, partially covered with plastic wrap plates set for 2, not 3. The coffee pot was still warm. As I rummaged through the refrigerator for something simple that wouldn't shock his empty stomach, the front door opened. My parents walked in, still in their church clothes, stopping short when they saw me in their kitchen with Tyler on my hip. "Christiana." My mother's surprise quickly morphed into disapproval. "We weren't expecting you until this evening. You should have called." I gave Tyler a small glass of orange juice, which he gulped desperately. "Why is my son starving?" My father removed his suit jacket, hanging it precisely on the coat rack. "Don't be melodramatic. The boy is fine. He hasn't eaten since Friday night. Where are the meals I packed for him?" My mother busied herself with the coffee maker, her back to me. "Those containers of yours are in the garage refrigerator. We don't allow food in bedrooms in this house, and we certainly don't allow children to eat whenever they please. He's 7 years old. He needs regular meals." "He's just a visitor here, not family," my mother said coldly, turning to face me with coffee cup in hand. "Not our responsibility to change our entire household routine for someone who isn't even a permanent part of our lives." The casual cruelty of her words stunned me into momentary silence. Tyler pressed his face against my shoulder, his small body tense. "What are you talking about? He's your grandson." "He's the product of your mistake," my father interjected, helping himself to the breakfast they'd prepared. "We're not obligated to treat every consequence of your poor decisions as family." "We fed him dinner Friday," my mother continued, as if this was perfectly reasonable. "But we're not going to waste food on a visitor who's only here for the weekend. Food costs money, Christiana." I looked around their spacious kitchen with its gleaming appliances at the spread of bacon, eggs, and fresh pastries they'd prepared for themselves. My parents were comfortably retired, financially secure. This had nothing to do with money. "Where are his meals?" "The ones I specifically packed and labeled." As I said, garage refrigerator. We weren't going to let all those plastic containers clutter up our kitchen. I carried Tyler to the garage, finding all his carefully prepared meals untouched in the secondary refrigerator out of his reach. I grabbed one and brought it back to the kitchen, quickly heating it in the microwave while my parents watched with disapproval. "You're overreacting," my mother said. "We gave him crackers yesterday when he complained. Children need to learn they can't always get what they want when they want it." I found the package of plain saltines on the counter, barely touched. "Crackers. For an entire day. It builds character," my father said between bites of his eggs. My parents were strict with meals, and I turned out fine. As the microwave beeped, I retrieved the warm container and set Tyler at the table away from my parents. He began eating slowly, his hands shaking slightly. "Tyler, did they give you anything at all yesterday besides crackers?" He glanced fearfully at his grandparents before answering. "Grandma gave me 1 apple in the morning, and I was allowed water from the bathroom sink." "The kitchen was locked," he added in a small voice. "I tried to get my special food, but I couldn't open the door." Horror washed through me as I looked at my parents. You locked him out of the kitchen. We always lock it at night, my father said defensively. Keeps pests out. He's not a pest. He's a child who needs to eat. My mother sipped her coffee calmly. You're being dramatic just like you always were. This is exactly why he's so dependent and fragile. You coddle him. He has food allergies and needs regular meals. I explained this to you. I wrote it down. I packed his food. All these allergies and special needs, my father scoffed. In my day, children weren't so weak. They ate what was provided or they went hungry. Tyler had stopped eating to watch our argument, his face pinched with anxiety. I lowered my voice, not wanting to frighten him further. Why didn't you tell me he wasn't eating when I called? Because it wasn't your concern, my mother replied coolly. He was in our care, under our rules. Tyler tugged at my sleeve. I tried to tell you, Mom, he whispered. But Grandpa said if I complained to you, they'd call Dad and tell him I was being bad, and then I'd have to go live with him instead. The manipulation, the cruelty, the deliberate withholding of food as some twisted form of control, it was all too familiar. They had done the same to me as a child, but I had buried those memories so deeply, I hadn't recognized the danger until it was too late. I helped Tyler finish his meal, then led him upstairs to pack his things, my mind racing with barely contained fury. As I folded his clothes into his bag, I noticed he'd already packed his favorite tiger-stuffed animal and books, as if prepared to flee at the first opportunity. Did Grandma and Grandpa say anything else that scared you? I asked gently. He nodded, eyes downcast. Grandma said you shouldn't have had me, that I ruined your life. And Grandpa said I'm not really part of their family because you and Dad got divorced. His voice broke. Are they right, Mom? Did I ruin everything? In that moment, something hardened inside me, a resolve crystallizing with perfect clarity. These people might be my biological parents, but they had just lost any right to be part of our lives. No, sweetheart, I said, firmly taking his small face between my hands. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. You didn't ruin anything, you made everything better. And we're going to leave here now and we won't be coming back. I helped him into his jacket, gathered his belongings, and led him downstairs. My parents were still in the kitchen, eating their breakfast as if nothing unusual had occurred. We're leaving, I announced, not bothering to mask the cold anger in my voice. Don't be ridiculous, my mother said. You're overreacting as usual. Sit down and have some breakfast and we can discuss this like adults. There's nothing to discuss. You starved my child. Such exaggeration, my father muttered. This is why he's so soft. You treat every minor discomfort like it's a crisis. I felt Tyler's hands slip into mine, squeezing tightly. In his eyes, I saw my own childhood fear reflected back at me, and it strengthened my resolve. We're going now, and trust me, this isn't the last you'll hear about what happened this weekend. As I ushered Tyler toward the door, my father called after us. If you walk out that door in this state, don't expect to be welcomed back, and you can forget about any inheritance. I turned back one last time, meeting his gaze steadily. Keep your money. It's not worth my son's well-being. With Tyler's hand firmly in mine, we walked out into the sunlight, leaving behind the chill of my childhood home. In the car, I buckled Tyler in and gave him a granola bar from my purse, watching as he ate it quickly, still afraid the food might disappear. Let's go get you checked out by a doctor, I said, starting the engine. Then we'll figure out our next steps. Are you mad at me, Mom? His voice was small, uncertain. No, baby. I'm mad at them, and at myself for not protecting you better, but never ever at you. I reached over to squeeze his hand. From now on, it's just you and me against the world. And I promise you will never go hungry again. The urgent care waiting room was quiet for a Sunday afternoon. Tyler leaned against my side, thumb in his mouth, a habit he'd broken 2 years ago. The regression spoke volumes about his emotional state. I filled out the paperwork, checking boxes for dehydration and possible malnutrition, my hand shaking with residual anger and guilt. When the nurse called his name, Tyler clung to me as we followed her to the exam room. Dr. Garcia, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, listened carefully as I explained the situation, keeping my voice low when describing my parents' actions so Tyler wouldn't relive the details. Let's take a look at you, young man, she said gently. The examination confirmed what I feared: mild dehydration, low blood sugar, and the physical effects of going without proper nutrition for nearly 48 hours. Nothing life-threatening, but certainly harmful for a growing child. I'd like to give him some IV fluids to help with the dehydration, Dr. Garcia said, and we'll run a few more tests to make sure everything else is okay. Tyler's eyes widened in fear at the mention of an IV. It's going to hurt. I stroked his hair. Just a little pinch, buddy, then it will help you feel better. I'll be right here the whole time. As the nurse prepared the IV, Dr. Garcia drew me aside. Mrs. Reeves, I have to ask, is this a situation where I need to file a report? The question hit me like a physical blow. Of course she needed to ask. Adults who denied food to a child were committing abuse. But these weren't strangers on the street. These were my parents, Tyler's grandparents. I don't know. I stammered, tears finally breaking through my composed facade. They're my parents. I never thought they would. I never believed they could. Dr. Garcia handed me a tissue. Take a breath. This isn't your fault. But I need to understand if Tyler is at risk of being in their care again. Never, I said, firmly wiping my eyes. They will never be alone with him again. She nodded, making a note in her tablet. If you want to pursue this officially, I can document everything for a report. But it's your choice whether to involve authorities at this stage, since you've removed him from the situation and there's no immediate danger. I looked over at Tyler, who was bravely watching the nurse insert the IV, tears streaming silently down his face. The thought of making him tell his story to police social workers, possibly in court, made my stomach turn. But the thought of my parents facing no consequences for what they'd done was equally unbearable. I need to think about it, I finally said, but please document everything. Of course. And Christiana, she added softly, you might consider counseling for both of you. Experiences like this can leave emotional scars that aren't as visible as physical ones. After Tyler received fluids and a proper examination, Dr. Garcia pronounced him physically on the mend, but advised a gentle diet for the next day and plenty of rest. She provided documentation of our visit and her findings, which I tucked carefully into my purse. Rather than return to my apartment where my parents had a spare key for emergencies, I checked us into a hotel near the hospital. Tyler perked up at the prospect of a hotel stay, especially when I ordered room service, a rare treat for our budget. Can we get ice cream too? He asked, the first hint of his normal self emerging. Absolutely. And we can eat it in bed while watching cartoons. As we waited for our food, Tyler grew quiet again, picking at a loose thread on the hotel bedspread. Mom, why don't they love me? The simple question broke my heart. I sat beside him, choosing my words carefully. Grandma and Grandpa have something broken inside them that makes it hard for them to show love the right way. It has nothing to do with you. You are perfect exactly as you are. But they're supposed to love me. They're family. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love us don't know how. That's their failing, not yours. I pulled him close, and sometimes we have to make our own family from people who do know how to love properly. After we ate, I stepped into the bathroom to call Jason. Despite our difficult relationship, he deserved to know what had happened to his son. To my surprise, he answered on the second ring. Christiana, is everything okay with Tyler? I kept my voice low, explaining what had happened in as neutral terms as possible. His reaction was immediate and uncharacteristically aligned with mine. Those bastards. I'm coming back early. Where are you now? At the Marriott downtown. Tyler's okay physically, just tired and confused. But Jason, he doesn't need more chaos right now. If you want to see him, it needs to be calm and supportive. For once, Jason didn't argue. I'll be there tomorrow afternoon. And Christiana, for what it's worth, you did the right thing getting him out of there. Your parents always gave me the creeps with how cold they were. After hanging up, I checked my phone to find 6 missed calls from my parents. As I stared at the screen, it lit up again with my mother's number. With Tyler now dozing in front of the television, I stepped onto the balcony to take the call. Where have you taken Tyler? She demanded without preamble. You had no right to leave without a proper goodbye. No, right. You locked my son out of the kitchen and denied him food for 2 days. We fed him dinner Friday night, she said, as if that justified everything. And he had snacks. Crackers aren't meals, Mother. He lost 4 pounds in 2 days. The doctor said he was dehydrated. Doctor, she scoffed. You took him to a doctor over this. You're overreacting as usual, Christiana. This is exactly why he's so fragile. You treat normal discipline like it's abuse. It is abuse. Denying food to a child is abuse. My father's voice came on the line, apparently on speakerphone. Now you listen here, young lady. We raised you with proper discipline and you turned out fine. This soft parenting of yours is creating a generation of entitled brats. I didn't turn out fine. I've spent years in therapy dealing with the emotional damage you caused, and I will not let you do the same to my son. Therapy, my mother snorted. More modern nonsense. If you pursue this ridiculous overreaction, my father cut in his voice hard, you can forget about your inheritance. Everything will go to your cousin Robert's family. They know how to respect their elders. Keep your money. I don't want anything from you. You'll change your tune when you're struggling to provide for that boy on your own, my mother said. You always come back when you need something. The truth of her words stung. I had allowed financial considerations to influence my decisions about their role in our lives. No more. Not this time. Don't call again unless you're ready to acknowledge what you did and get professional help. I ended the call and stood on the balcony, watching the sun set over the city. For the first time, I allowed myself to fully feel the weight of my failure to protect Tyler, and the tears came in earnest. I had known who my parents were. Deep down, I had always known. Yet I had exposed my innocent son to their cruelty, because it was convenient, because I needed childcare, because some misguided sense of family obligation told me they deserved a relationship with their grandson. Sleep eluded me that night. I lay beside Tyler, listening to his even breathing, making mental lists of what needed to be done. Change the locks on our apartment. Update emergency contact information at Tyler's school. Contact a family therapist. Perhaps even consult a lawyer about a restraining order, though the thought made my stomach churn. These were my parents, and despite everything, some small damaged part of me still craved their approval. In the morning, I called my oldest friend Lily, who had known my family since childhood. Her outrage was immediate and validating. I always knew your parents were cold, Chris, but this is beyond anything I imagined. What can I do? Can we stay with you for a few days until I change the locks? I don't want to go home yet in case they show up. Of course. I'll make up the guest room. And I'm calling my cousin, who's a family attorney. You need advice on how to protect yourself and Tyler legally. I don't know if I want to take legal action, I admitted, the thought of dragging Tyler through that. Just talk to her. Know your options. You don't have to decide anything now. After hanging up, I sat on the edge of the bed, memories washing over me. The time I was 9 and got sick at school, but neither parent would leave work to pick me up, leaving me in the nurse's office for 3 hours with a fever. The Christmas when I was 11 and received educational software instead of the art supplies I'd begged for, being told drawing is a waste of time. The countless dinners eaten in silence, the achievements that went uncelebrated, the tears that went uncomforted. Food had always been a control mechanism in our house. Clean your plate or no dessert. Late to dinner means no dinner at all. Snacking shows lack of discipline. I had normalized these behaviors even as I developed my own unhealthy relationship with food that took years of therapy to address. And now Tyler was experiencing the same psychological warfare, the same manipulation, the same food insecurity. I had broken the cycle in so many ways as a mother, showing Tyler the affection, support, and unconditional love I had never received. But in one critical way, I had failed him. I had allowed the architects of my own trauma access to him. Tyler woke up asking for pancakes, a good sign his appetite was returning. Over breakfast in the hotel restaurant, I explained that we would be staying with Aunt Lily for a few days and that his dad was coming to visit that afternoon. Are we hiding from Grandma and Grandpa? He asked, his perception catching me off guard. Not hiding, sweetheart. Taking space. Sometimes when people hurt us, we need to step back and figure out how to keep ourselves safe. They hurt my feelings when they said I wasn't really family, he said, pushing his syrup around with his fork, and my tummy when they wouldn't let me eat. I know, baby. And they were wrong to do that. So wrong. Will we have to see them again? I looked into his anxious eyes and made a decision. Not unless you want to, and even then, only if I'm right there with you the whole time. He nodded solemnly. I don't think I want to. Is that okay? That's completely okay. You get to decide who's in your life, Tyler. Always remember that. Relief washed over his small face, and he returned to his pancakes with renewed enthusiasm. Children are remarkably resilient, I thought, but that doesn't mean they should have to be. After settling into Lily's guest room that afternoon and a surprisingly civil visit from Jason, who for once seemed genuinely concerned about Tyler's well-being, I began to formulate a plan. It came to me that night as I lay awake thinking about what my parents truly valued. Not me, certainly, not Tyler. What they valued was their image in the community, their possessions, and the power they wielded through their conditional affection and financial control. The thought of them continuing their comfortable lives facing no consequences for what they'd done to Tyler made my blood boil. There was one avenue open to me, one way to hit them where it would truly hurt without dragging Tyler through a public legal battle. My grandmother, my mother's mother, had left several family heirlooms, specifically to me in her will. My parents had been the executors and had kept these items for safekeeping in their home despite my occasional requests to claim them over the years. Among these were an antique pearl necklace, a collection of vintage photographs, hand-stitched quilts, and most significantly a complete silver service that had been in the family for 4 generations, which my mother displayed prominently during her social gatherings. These items weren't just valuable, they were status symbols my parents used to bolster their standing in the community. The next morning, while Tyler was playing video games with Lily, I called my friend Marcus, who practiced family law. I explained the situation, including the items that legally belonged to me but remained in my parents' possession. They can't withhold property that was specifically bequeathed to you, Marcus confirmed. Your grandmother's will should be filed with the county probate court. We can get a copy to confirm the bequest, but if what you're saying is accurate, those items are legally yours. So I could just take them. It wouldn't be theft. Not of items explicitly left to you, but I'd advise documenting everything, taking photos before and after, and having a witness present if possible. And Christiana, are you sure this is the route you want to take? It will certainly burn bridges. Those bridges are already ash, I said grimly. I just want what's rightfully mine. After confirming the details in my grandmother's will, I formulated my plan carefully. My parents attended the same church service every Sunday morning from 9 to 11, followed by the church social hour until at least noon. Their house would be empty and I still had my key. On Saturday, I prepared Tyler for what would happen the next day. We're going to go to Grandma and Grandpa's house while they're at church to pick up some special things that actually belong to Mommy, I explained gently. Things that my grandma wanted me to have. Tyler's forehead creased with worry. Won't they be mad? They might be, I acknowledged. But these things are legally mine and I'm allowed to take them. What kind of things? Some jewelry, old photos, blankets that my grandma made, and a special silver tea set that's been in our family for a long time. Tyler considered this. Will they try to hurt us again? The question broke my heart. No, sweetheart, they won't be there, and after this, we're going to take a break from seeing them for a long time. Good, he said with surprising firmness. They were mean. Sunday morning dawned clear and crisp. Lily agreed to come with us as both witness and moral support. We timed our arrival for 9:15, well after my parents would have left for church. Their driveway was empty when we pulled up, just as expected. I'll wait in the car with Tyler for a few minutes, Lily suggested. Give you a chance to make sure the coast is clear. With trembling hands, I unlocked the front door and stepped into the quiet house. It felt different now, knowing what had happened here, seeing it through Tyler's eyes. I did a quick walkthrough to confirm it was empty, then waved for Lily and Tyler to join me. We'll start upstairs, I decided, leading them to the guest bedroom, where my grandmother's quilts were stored in a cedar chest. I carefully removed each one handmade works of art that told our family story in fabric and thread. Tyler ran his fingers over the intricate patterns. These are pretty, Mom. They are, aren't they? My grandma made them for me when I was little. Now they'll be in our house. I folded them carefully into the bags we'd brought. In my parents' bedroom, I opened my mother's jewelry box, removing only the pieces I knew had been my grandmother's, the pearl necklace, a cameo brooch, and a pair of sapphire earrings. I left everything else untouched. Are those diamonds? Tyler asked, pointing to my mother's wedding set. Yes, but those are Grandma's, not ours. We're only taking what belongs to us. We moved methodically through the house, collecting the vintage photographs from the hallway. the small oil paintings my grandmother had brought from Europe, the handwritten recipe books from the kitchen shelf. Lily documented everything with her phone, creating a visual inventory. In the dining room, I carefully wrapped each piece of the silver service: the teapot, coffee pot, cream pitcher, sugar bowl, and serving tray. These were the crown jewels of my mother's entertaining arsenal pieces she polished monthly and displayed prominently during her bridge club meetings and church committee luncheons. As I wrapped the last piece, Tyler tugged at my sleeve. "Mom, can we look in the attic? I saw something up there when I was playing hide and seek last time." "What did you see, buddy?" "A box with my name on it. Grandma said it was just old junk when I asked about it." Curiosity piqued, we climbed the narrow attic stairs. In the far corner, partially hidden behind holiday decorations, sat a cardboard box labeled Tyler Baby Items. With a sense of foreboding, I opened it, finding a treasure trove of items I thought long lost: Tyler's hospital bracelet, tiny handprints in clay, the outfit he wore home from the hospital, dozens of photographs from his first year of Tyne in Enden nwww.com. Life. Items I had specifically asked my mother about years ago when I was creating his baby book. She told me these were accidentally thrown away during their basement renovation. I whispered to Lily, hot tears pricking my eyes. "More lies," Lily replied grimly. "Just like the box of your high school awards and letters they claimed got water damaged." Sure enough, in an adjacent box labeled Christiana School, we found perfectly preserved report cards, art projects, and academic awards from my youth. Items my parents had claimed were lost or destroyed years ago when I'd asked about them. They just couldn't stand for us to have these pieces of ourselves, could they? I said bitterly, adding both boxes to our collection. As we made one final sweep of the house, I spotted a filing cabinet in my father's office that I had never been allowed to access as a child. On impulse, I tried the drawer, finding it unlocked. Inside were meticulously organized financial records, including a folder labeled Christiana Trust. With shaking hands, I opened it, discovering documents detailing a trust fund established by my grandparents when I was born, meant to be transferred to my control at age 25. I was now 32 and had never been informed of its existence. According to the statements, the fund had grown to just over $68,000, money that legally should have been in my possession for years. "We need to take these," Lily said, firmly photographing each page before placing the documents in our bag. "Marcus needs to see this." Our final stop was the kitchen, where I retrieved Tyler's special meal containers from the garage refrigerator, physical evidence of my parents' deliberate neglect. Before leaving, I sat at the dining room table and wrote a letter explaining exactly why I had taken these items, detailing the legal basis for my actions and establishing clear boundaries moving forward: no contact unless they acknowledged the harm they had caused, sought professional counseling, and made amends to Tyler. I placed the letter prominently on the table along with my house key. As a final symbolic gesture, I removed the family photos from the mantelpiece pictures that presented a false image of familial harmony and left them face down beside the letter. "Are we ready?" Lily asked softly, our bags now filled with my reclaimed heritage. I looked around the house one last time, memories flooding through me, both good and bad. Despite everything, a tiny part of me mourned what could have been the loving grandparents. Tyler deserved the supportive parents I had never had. "Yes," I said finally. "We're ready." As we loaded the car, I saw Tyler placing something in one of the bags. "What's that, sweetheart?" "A picture I found of you when you were little, Mom. You looked happy." He showed me a faded Polaroid of myself at perhaps 5 years old, sitting on a beach, laughing with abandoned joy. "I thought you might want it." "Thank you, baby," I whispered, hugging him close. "That was a good day. I'm going to make sure you have lots of good days, too." We were pulling away from the curb when I spotted my parents' car turning onto the street, returning from church earlier than expected. For a moment, our vehicles passed each other, and I locked eyes with my mother in the passenger seat. Her expression shifted from confusion to comprehension to fury in the span of seconds. "Drive," I told Lily calmly. "Just drive." My phone began ringing almost immediately. I silenced it without looking, focusing instead on Tyler in the back seat, who was examining one of his baby photographs with wonder. "Is that really me, Mom? I was so tiny." "That's really you, sweetheart. the day we brought you home from the hospital, the happiest day of my life. As we drove away from my childhood home for the last time, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders replaced by a steely determination. The items in our car weren't just possessions, they were pieces of our identity that had been withheld from us. In reclaiming them, I had taken the first step in reclaiming our dignity and worth. And if my parents wanted a war over what I had taken, I was more than ready to fight. For Tyler, for myself, and for the little girl I had been who deserved so much better than what she received. The backlash began immediately, and with stunning ferocity. By the time we returned to Lily's house, my phone had 23 missed calls and 16 text messages alternating between my mother's cold fury and my father's explicit threats. "How dare you break into our home?" one text read. "Return our property immediately or we'll call the police." "You ungrateful child," said another. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us." I blocked their numbers and spent the afternoon cataloging everything we had retrieved, photographing each item for documentation. Lily helped Tyler arrange his baby photos in a small album, while I consulted with Marcus about next steps. "The trust fund situation is clear-cut," Marcus said after reviewing the documents. "That money should have been transferred to you 7 years ago. We can file paperwork to force the transfer immediately. And if they fight it, they'll lose and they'll pay all legal fees plus interest. Based on these documents, your grandparents' intent was unambiguous." By Monday morning, the situation had escalated. My mother had called my workplace telling my boss I was mentally unstable and had stolen valuable property. Fortunately, my boss, Lisa, called me directly rather than taking my mother's word. "Christiana, what's going on?" "I just got the strangest call from someone claiming to be your mother." I took a deep breath and gave her a condensed version of the weekend's events. To my relief, her response was supportive. "Take whatever time you need. Your position is secure and I'll make sure no more calls from them get through." My parents' next move was to contact extended family, spinning a tale of my breakdown and theft. Aunts, uncles, and cousins began calling, most accepting my parents' version without question. Only my mother's sister, Aunt Susan, seemed skeptical. "Your mother said you broke in and stole her silver and jewelry," she said when she called. "But something about this doesn't add up. Your mother has always been creative with the truth." I explained what had actually happened, including Tyler's treatment and the discovery of the hidden trust fund. There was a long pause before Susan responded. "I wish I could say I'm surprised, but I'm not. Your mother did similar things to me when we were young. I've kept my distance for years for my own sanity." She sighed heavily. "What can I do to help?" "Just believing me helps more than you know." By Wednesday, my parents had escalated to legal threats, sending a formal letter demanding the return of all stolen items and threatening to pursue grandparents' rights if I continued to alienate them from their grandson. Marcus was unimpressed. "Grandparents' rights are extremely limited in our state, especially given the documented neglect. And as for the items, we have the will that proves they're yours. Let them waste their money on attorneys if they want to." I changed the locks on our apartment and installed a simple security system. Tyler's school was informed that my parents were not authorized to pick him up under any circumstances, and his teacher, Mrs. Bennett, was briefed on the situation. "Tyler mentioned being hungry at his grandparents' house," she told me during our conference. "I thought he was exaggerating, as children sometimes do. I'm so sorry I didn't alert you." "It's not your fault," I assured her. "I'm the one who should have known better." Tyler began seeing a child psychologist, Dr. Wilson, who specialized in family trauma. After their first session, she shared her initial impressions with me. "Tyler's remarkably resilient, but he's processing a lot of confusing feelings. He's worried about his grandparents being angry, but he's more worried about possibly having to see them again." "He won't have to," I said firmly, "not unless he wants to someday, and even then only with supervision." "That's good. He needs that security right now." "And Christiana," she added gently, "how are you processing all this?" The question caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on Tyler that I'd barely acknowledged my own emotional state. "I'm managing," I said finally, taking it day by day. "Consider counseling for yourself, too. Parents often absorb their children's trauma while neglecting their own healing." She was right, of course. The nightmares had already started, old memories resurfacing, amplified by fresh guilt over Tyler's experience. I scheduled an appointment with my former therapist, Dr. Lindsay, whom I hadn't seen in nearly 2 years. In the meantime, my parents continued their campaign. My father showed up at my workplace, creating such a scene in the lobby that security was called. He was issued a trespassing warning, which only fueled his indignation. My mother tried a different approach, sending a tearful voicemail claiming they were only trying to instill proper values in Tyler and that I was tearing the family apart with my overreaction. The most difficult moment came during the Thanksgiving holiday. Tyler and I had planned to spend it with Lily's family, but the day before, he asked the question I'd been dreading. "Are Grandma and Grandpa going to be alone tomorrow?" "Probably not," I said carefully. "They have friends from church they can spend time with." He nodded thoughtfully. "I'm glad they won't be alone, but I'm glad we won't be with them too." He looked up at me with earnest eyes. "Is that bad? To be glad we're not with family on Thanksgiving?" I pulled him into a hug. "Family isn't just who you're related to, buddy. It's the people who treat you with love and kindness. Lily and her parents are our family too, just in a different way." The holiday passed peacefully, a marked contrast to the tense formal affairs at my parents' house in previous years. Tyler laughed and played with Lily's nieces and nephews, and for the first time in months seemed completely carefree. December brought a new development. My father, perhaps realizing their public approach wasn't working, sent a letter that almost resembled an apology. "We may have been overly strict with Tyler," he wrote. "We were raised differently and believe in firm discipline, but we understand that modern parenting takes another view. If you return the items you took, especially your mother's silver service, we can discuss visitation arrangements moving forward." The non-apology infuriated me. There was no acknowledgement of the harm they had caused, only a begrudging admission that our parenting philosophies differed. And the focus on the silver service, which legally belonged to me, revealed their true priority. I responded with a brief note. "The items I took were legally mine as documented in grandmother's will. There will be no visitation until you acknowledge the actual harm caused to Tyler, commit to counseling, and demonstrate genuine change. This is non-negotiable." My mother's response was typical cold silence. She had always used the silent treatment as her preferred weapon, withdrawing affection and communication until the other person capitulated out of sheer emotional exhaustion. It had worked on me as a child. It would not work on me now. Christmas came and went, our first holiday season completely estranged from my parents. We created new traditions, baking cookies with Lily, attending the children's concert at Tyler's school, volunteering at a local food bank. The irony of helping ensure others had enough to eat was not lost on me. In January, the trust fund matter was resolved in my favor with minimal legal wrangling. My parents, advised by their attorney that they would lose a protracted battle, transferred the funds plus interest without further argument. The financial security this provided was life-changing, allowing me to pay off lingering debt from the divorce and establish a college fund for Tyler. By the 6-month mark after the incident, we had settled into a new normal. Tyler was thriving in therapy and at school. My own counseling sessions were helping me process decades of complex emotions about my parents. The nightmares had subsided, replaced by a growing sense of peace with my decision to establish firm boundaries. My parents had made no meaningful attempts at reconciliation, only occasional demands for the return of their property or vague mentions of moving past this unfortunate misunderstanding. Each communication revealed their fundamental inability to see the situation for what it was or to acknowledge Tyler and me as full human beings with rights and feelings deserving of respect. One evening, as I tucked Tyler into bed beneath one of his great-grandmother's quilts, he asked me a question that showed just how much healing had occurred. "Mom, do you think Grandma and Grandpa know they did something bad, or do they really think they were right?" I considered how to answer truthfully without burdening him. "I think they believe they were doing what they thought was best in their own way. But that doesn't make it right or okay." He nodded solemnly. "Some kids at school have really nice grandparents who bake them cookies and take them fishing." "I know, buddy. I wish you had that too." "It's okay," he said, surprising me with his maturity. "I have you and Aunt Lily and Mrs. Patterson and all my friends. That's a lot of people who love me right." In that moment, I knew that despite everything, we were going to be all right. The cycle of emotional neglect that had run through generations of my family had stopped with me with us. Tyler would grow up knowing he was valued, protected, and unconditionally loved, not just when he behaved according to some rigid standard, but always and completely. The silver service now graced my modest dining room, transformed from a status symbol into a reminder of our worth and resilience. The photos and baby items my parents had hidden away adorned our apartment, celebrating rather than concealing our history. And the trust fund intended by my grandparents to give me a secure start in adult life would now help provide Tyler with opportunities I never had. It wasn't the family story I would have chosen, but it was ours, and we were writing the next chapters on our own terms. 1 year after that fateful weekend, Tyler and I stood in our new home, a small but charming 3-bedroom house with a backyard where he could play. The promotion I'd received at work combined with careful management of the trust fund had made this modest dream possible. As we unpacked boxes in the sunny kitchen, Tyler held up one of his grandmother's handmade quilts. "Where should we put this one, Mom?" "How about on your bed? That way it's like she's keeping you warm at night." He nodded approvingly. "I like that. And where will the silver stuff go?" "In the dining room cabinet. Not locked away or just for show, but for us to actually use when we have special meals with people we love." This was the philosophy that had guided our new life. The heirlooms that my parents had hoarded and hidden were now integrated into our daily existence, transformed from status symbols into functional objects of beauty and meaning. My grandmother's silver service came out for Sunday brunches with Lily and her family. The vintage photos lined our hallway telling the story of our heritage. The quilts adorned beds and the backs of sofas providing both warmth and connection to our past. Our new home was just 15 miles from my old apartment, but in a different school district, offering Tyler a fresh start away from the whispered gossip that had followed our family drama. He had adjusted remarkably well, making new friends and continuing to work with Dr. Wilson, though now just twice a month rather than weekly. The nightmares had largely subsided, replaced by an occasional wistfulness when he saw classmates with their grandparents at school events. But overall, his resilience amazed me. Children, I had learned, can heal from almost anything given enough love, security, and honest communication. My own healing journey had been more complicated. Dr. Lindsay had helped me understand that the parent-child relationship is one of the most primal bonds we form, and severing it, even when necessary, creates a unique type of grief. I had mourned not just the loss of my actual parents, but the fantasy parents I had always hoped they might become. 6 months earlier, an unexpected letter had arrived from my mother. Unlike her previous communications, this one showed the first glimmers of genuine reflection. "I've been thinking about what happened with Tyler," she wrote. "While I still believe children need firm boundaries, I can see now that denying him food went beyond discipline. My own mother was very strict about meals, and I never questioned whether her methods were harmful. Perhaps there are things I need to reconsider." It wasn't a full acknowledgement or apology, but it was the first crack in her perfect facade, the first hint that she might be capable of growth. I responded carefully, restating my requirement that they seek professional counseling before any contact with Tyler would be considered. My father remained stubbornly distant, communicating only through terse messages delivered via my mother. But even in his silence, there were signs of regret. Aunt Susan reported that he had stopped boasting about cutting me from the will at family gatherings and had even defended me when a cousin made a disparaging comment about young parents today. Small steps barely visible to anyone who didn't know him well, but steps nonetheless. 3 months ago, my parents had agreed to meet with me and a family therapist, Dr. Mercer, who specialized in adult parent-child reconciliation. The session had been tense and difficult, with my father initially dismissive and my mother tearful but defensive. "We did the best we could with what we knew," she insisted. Many parents say that Dr. Mercer observed, but the question is, are you willing to learn and do better now? By the end of the 90-minute session, tiny seeds of understanding had been planted. My parents agreed to continue therapy on their own, a commitment I hadn't expected them to make. Whether it would lead to meaningful change remained to be seen, but it was more progress than I had dared to hope for. Tyler, informed of these developments, had been thoughtful but cautious. "If they say sorry and really mean it, we have to see them a lot." "No, sweetheart, you get to decide if and when you're ready to see them again. And if you do, I'll be with you the entire time." "Maybe someday," he said. but not yet. His wisdom continued to amaze me. At 8 years old, he understood boundaries better than many adults. The healing power of being given choices of having his feelings respected was evident in his growing confidence and sense of security. Our support network had expanded in unexpected ways. A single parents group I joined through Dr. Wilson's recommendation had become a vital source of friendship and practical assistance. We took turns hosting dinners, shared childcare during emergencies, and provided emotional support during difficult moments. They had become our chosen family bound, not by blood, but by mutual respect and genuine caring. Jason, too, had stepped up in ways I hadn't anticipated. Our civil coexistence had evolved into something resembling actual co-parenting, with more regular visits and genuine interest in Tyler's well-being. The incident with my parents had been a wake-up call for him about the importance of being present in his son's life. "I don't want him to ever feel abandoned again," Jason told me during a recent drop-off, by anyone. Last week, as Tyler and I arranged his great-grandmother's hand-painted plates on a special shelf in our new dining room, he made a comment that stopped me in my tracks. "I'm glad we took all this stuff from Grandma and Grandpa's house," he said, carefully positioning a delicate teacup. "It's happier here with us." "What makes you think it's happier here?" I asked, curious about his perspective. He considered the question seriously, his expression, thoughtful beyond his years, "Because we actually use it and love it. Things want to be used for what they're made for, not just looked at. Like people want to be loved for who they are, not just what they do." The profound simplicity of his observation brought tears to my eyes. In his childish wisdom, he had articulated what had taken me years of therapy to understand: that love should be unconditional, not performative or transactional. That people, like objects of beauty, should be valued for their inherent worth, not just their utility or appearance. That night, as I wrote in my journal, I reflected on the painful but necessary journey of the past year. Setting boundaries with toxic family members, even parents, wasn't selfish or cruel. Sometimes it was the only path to healing, the only way to break generational cycles of harm. By standing firm in protection of Tyler, I had finally learned to protect my own inner child as well. The silver service gleamed in our cabinet, no longer a symbol of status, but a testament to reclaimed heritage and worth. The trust fund, now properly in my control, provided security without strings. The photographs and mementos told our true family story, not the sanitized version my parents had carefully curated. We had lost something in this journey, certainly. The fantasy of perfect reconciliation, of the loving grandparents Tyler deserved, of the supportive parents I had always craved. But we had gained something far more valuable: authenticity, boundaries, self-respect, and a chosen family built on genuine love rather than obligation. As I tucked Tyler into bed beneath his great-grandmother's quilt, he asked one last question before drifting off to sleep. "Mom, are we still a real family, even though it's just us?" "Of course we are," I replied, smoothing his curls back from his forehead. "Family isn't about how many people there are or whether you're related by blood. It's about how you treat each other, how you protect each other, and how you help each other grow." He smiled sleepily. "That's what I thought. I like our family best this way." In the quiet of his room, watching my son fall asleep feeling safe and loved, I knew that breaking the cycle of neglect and emotional abuse had been worth every difficult moment. Sometimes the most important boundaries are the ones we never expected to set with the very people who were supposed to love us unconditionally. And sometimes the most valuable inheritances aren't silver or money, but the courage to say no more and the wisdom to build something better. What about you? Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family to protect yourself or your children? Let me know in the comments below. If my story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to prioritize emotional safety over family obligation. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the family we choose is more nurturing than the family we're born into.